The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystalline floor, its vaulted ceiling lost in artificial starlight. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated alcoves, each environment carefully controlled to accommodate different atmospheric needs. The air hummed with translation matrices and the soft chittering of a dozen different forms of communication. Ambassador of the Empire rose from his gravitational suspension field, his 4 arms spreading wide in a gesture of dominance. His species had ruled the eastern spiral arm for over 2, their warrior culture built on conquest and strength. Standing 3 meters tall with chitinous armor naturally grown from their exoskeleton, they were the undisputed military power of known space. Honored representatives, his voice boomed through the translation system, we gather today to address a new threat to galactic stability. Intelligence reports indicate a species from the rim worlds has begun expanding beyond their home system. They call themselves humans. An early reconnaissance suggests they possess technology and aggressive tendencies that warrant immediate attention. A ripple of interest passed through the chamber. New species were discovered regularly, but few warranted a full council session. Most were either too primitive to matter or too advanced to be considered threats to the established order. Counselor Ra of the Ethereal Collective floated closer to the speaking circle, her translucent form shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Her species communicated through color and electrical impulses, having evolved beyond physical speech ago. What makes these humans different from the countless other rim species we've? Our databases show the outer arms typically produce either prey species or, at best, minor trade partners. Activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. 3-dimensional star charts showed a small yellow star system with 9 planets, the third highlighted in blue and green. The humans emerged from this single world, which they call Earth. Initial scans suggested a typical carbon-based biosphere with moderate gravity and a standard atmospheric composition. Nothing remarkable. The display zoomed in to show the planet in detail, then shifted to show technological progression charts. However, in less than 200 years, they progressed from primitive combustion engines to faster-than-light travel. Their development curve is unprecedented in galactic history. A collective murmur arose from the assembled delegates. Even the most aggressive species typically took a millennium or more to develop FTL capability after achieving space flight. Perhaps they received outside assistance, suggested of the silicon hegemony, his crystalline form refracting light across the chamber walls. There are precedents for advanced species sharing technology with promising primitives. That was our initial assumption, replied, manipulating the hologram to show detailed scans of human spacecraft. But analysis of their technology reveals a completely unique development path. Their ships use fusion drives paired with gravitational field manipulation in ways our physicists claim should be impossible. Their computer systems operate on quantum principles that our best scientists are still struggling to understand. The display shifted again, showing recorded footage of human colonies. Sprawling cities rose from barren worlds, massive terraforming operations that transformed dead rocks into garden planets in decades rather than centuries. Humans in environmental suits worked alongside massive construction mechs, their movements precise and purposeful. More concerning, continued, is their expansion rate. In 50 years since achieving FTL, they have established permanent settlements on 17 worlds and mining operations in 32 systems. They show no signs of slowing down. Counselor Hen of the Aquatic Federation spoke from her water-filled chamber, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of her species' deep ocean evolution. Rapid expansion is not necessarily threatening. Many species go through aggressive colonization phases before settling into stable territories. What evidence suggests hostility? The hologram changed to show intercepted human communications, translated text scrolling alongside audio recordings. Their languages contain over 2,000 words for warfare, conflict, and competition. Their entertainment frequently involves simulated combat scenarios. Most telling, they refer to their expansion as manifest destiny, a concept that translates roughly to inevitable conquest of all available territory. High Arbitrator of the Ancient Conclave finally spoke, her species so old that they remembered the formation of the first galactic governments. Her crystalline body, worn smooth by of existence, resonated with harmonic frequencies that bypassed translation altogether. We have seen aggressive species before. They themselves once conquered 3 sectors before joining the Council. What makes you believe these humans pose a unique threat? His 4 eyes narrowed, a sign of deep concern among his people. Because they are unlike any species we have encountered, observe their response to first contact. The display showed a human starship, sleek and angular, approached by a diplomatic vessel. The massive dreadnought, bristling with weapons and armor, dwarfed the human craft by a factor of 10. Standard protocol called for the smaller vessel to surrender weapons and prepare for boarding. Instead, the human ship accelerated directly toward the vessel, its hull opening to reveal weapon ports that had been completely invisible to their sensors. The engagement lasted 17 seconds. When it ended, the ship was drifting dead in space, its crew unconscious from some kind of neural disruptor field. They destroyed a heavy cruiser with a ship 1/10 its size, said quietly. They used weapons our sensors couldn't detect and tactics our strategists couldn't predict. Then, instead of destroying the ship entirely, they boarded it and provided medical aid to our crew. The chamber fell silent. Even the most advanced species in the Council would have struggled against a heavy cruiser, and none would have shown mercy afterward. This is their pattern, continued. They fight with impossible effectiveness, then show unexpected compassion. They terraformed a dead world to relocate refugees from a plague outbreak, spending enormous resources to save a species they had never met. Yet when the Syndicate attempted to claim one of their mining worlds, the humans eliminated an entire fleet group without losing a single ship. Counselor Ra pulsed bright red, her species' sign of agitation. You're suggesting they're more dangerous because they're unpredictably merciful. That hardly seems logical. I'm suggesting they're dangerous because we can't understand them, replied. Every other species follows predictable patterns. Territorial instincts, resource competition, hierarchical dominance structures. The humans appear to operate on principles we haven't encountered before. The display shifted one final time, showing a compilation of human activities across their territory. Children playing in elaborate recreational facilities on a mining world. Scientists collaborating with 3 different alien species on a research station. Military units practicing combat maneuvers that involved protecting civilian populations rather than eliminating enemies. They build cities where other species would build fortresses. They share technology with potential allies while simultaneously developing weapons that our intelligence agencies can't comprehend. They sing songs about peace while training armies that have never known defeat. High Arbitrator resonated a low, thoughtful tone. What do you propose, Ambassador? I propose we issue a formal directive limiting human expansion to their current territory. If they refuse, we enforce the limitation through military action before they become too powerful to contain. The chamber erupted in discussion, dozens of species debating the merits of preemptive action against a species they barely understood. Some argued for immediate military intervention, others for continued observation. A few suggested attempting peaceful contact through proper diplomatic channels. Counselor Hen's voice cut through the chaos. Has anyone considered simply asking the humans what they want? Perhaps their goals are not as threatening as they appear. His expression would have been recognizable as a sneer to any human observer. They want what every species wants, Counselor. More territory, more resources, more power. The only question is whether we stop them now, while we still can, or wait until they're strong enough to stop us. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone expected. 24 species voted for immediate action, 20 voted for continued observation, and 3 abstained. The resolution passed by the narrowest margin in Council history. As the delegates dispersed to their ships and home worlds, none of them noticed the small probe that had been monitoring their session from the chamber's outer hull. Its stealth systems, based on principles the Council's scientists wouldn't discover for another century, made it invisible to their most advanced sensors. The probe recorded everything, compressed the data into a quantum transmission, and sent it across the galaxy in real time to a blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. There, in a facility hidden beneath the mountains of Colorado, human analysts reviewed the footage with expressions that would have terrified the Council members who thought they were the ones making threats. Admiral Sarah closed the file and looked across the briefing room at her staff. Looks like we're about to find out just how strong they really think they are. Outside the mountain facility, across Earth's continents, A species that had never known a day of true peace began preparing for a war that would reshape the galaxy. They had been waiting for this moment since their first tentative steps into space, knowing that eventually they would have to prove themselves to a universe that judged worth by the ability to survive. The Galactic Council had made their decision based on fear and incomplete information. They were about to discover that humans had made their preparations based on hope and complete dedication to a principle they called freedom. The difference would matter more than anyone could imagine. 3 months after the Council's decision, the war fleet assembled at the edge of human space represented the largest military force deployed in over 5 centuries. 237 ships of the line, each one a kilometer-long instrument of destruction, surrounded by clouds of fighter craft and support vessels. The fleet carried enough firepower to reduce a planet to molten slag in minutes. Fleet Admiral, or brother to the ambassador who had brought the human threat to the Council's attention, stood on the command bridge of the dreadnought Endless Victory. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, he could see the sprawling formation of ships that answered to his command. Every major species in the Council had contributed vessels to this force, unified in their determination to stop human expansion before it could threaten the established order. Communications, open a channel to the human territory boundary, or commanded, his 4 arms manipulating control interfaces with practiced efficiency. They had been conducting space warfare for 2, and their battle doctrine had never failed them. Overwhelming force, superior numbers, and the simple logic that any species faced with certain destruction would choose survival over resistance. The communication array reached across space to the human colony world designated as New Harmony by its inhabitants. The response came faster than expected, almost as if the humans had been waiting for contact. A human face appeared on the main display, female by their biological standards, with short brown hair and eyes the color of Earth's sky. She wore a simple blue uniform with insignia that the translation computers identified as indicating military rank. Her expression was calm, almost curious, as she regarded the alien fleet commander. "This is Colonel Maria Santos of the New Harmony Defense Force," she said, her voice carrying easily through the translation matrix. "I assume you're here about the Council resolution. We've been expecting you." Or straightened to his full 3-meter height, an intimidation display that had worked on countless species over the centuries. "I am Fleet Admiral, or of the combined Council forces. You will immediately cease all expansion activities and withdraw to your home system. Any deviation from this directive will result in the complete destruction of your colonies and infrastructure." Santos nodded as if considering his words carefully. "I appreciate the formal notification, Admiral. However, I'm afraid we can't comply with that request. We have 17 worlds full of people who consider their current homes to be, well, home. Asking them to abandon everything they've built would be unreasonable." The calm response caught or off guard. Every species they had ever faced with this level of force had immediately begun negotiations or surrendered outright. "You are outnumbered 200 to 1. Our combined fleet represents the military might of 47 different civilizations. Resistance is not merely futile, it is incomprehensible." Santos smiled, and something in that expression made the alien commander feel distinctly uncomfortable. "You know, Admiral, we've run the numbers ourselves. You're absolutely right about being outnumbered, but I think there might be a fundamental misunderstanding about what constitutes military strength." Before or could respond, his tactical officer's voice cut through the bridge chatter. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the human territory. Something is happening on every world simultaneously." The main display shifted to show tactical readouts from across the 17 human colonies. Each world was suddenly radiating energy outputs that exceeded their known industrial capacity by orders of magnitude. Deep space sensors detected similar signatures from what appeared to be empty space between star systems. "What you're seeing," Santos continued conversationally, "is our defensive network coming online. See, humans learned a long time ago that the best way to survive a fight isn't to be the strongest, it's to be the most prepared." The tactical display exploded with contacts. Ships began appearing throughout human space, not warping in from distant locations, but literally materializing from what the alien sensors had registered as empty space. Advanced stealth technology that had made entire fleets invisible suddenly switched off, revealing the true scope of human military preparation. Or's four eyes widened in disbelief. The humans hadn't just hidden a few ships. They had concealed an entire parallel infrastructure. Space stations that looked like asteroids powered up to reveal massive weapon arrays. Planets that appeared to have standard defensive installations suddenly displayed orbital platforms that dwarfed anything in the Council fleet. "Impossible," whispered his science officer. "Our sensors show they have over 1,500 ships, and energy signatures suggest weapons technology at least 3 generations beyond anything in our databases." Santos checked something on her own display. "Actually, we have 1,843 ships currently active, but who's counting? The important thing is that every one of them is crewed by volunteers who believe in what they're defending." "This is an illusion," Ord declared, though his voice lacked conviction. "No species could achieve this level of technological advancement in such a short time. You must have received assistance from one of the advanced civilizations." "Actually, Admiral, we did receive assistance from the most advanced civilization we know." Santos paused for effect. "Ourselves. See, when humans first achieved spaceflight, we made a decision that apparently never occurred to other species. We decided that space was too dangerous to explore without being prepared for the worst-case scenario." The tactical officer's voice grew increasingly agitated. "Admiral, their smallest ships are reading energy outputs comparable to our heavy cruisers, and I'm detecting weapons systems that don't match any known technology profiles." "Humans have a saying," Santos continued. "Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. When we first detected radio signals from other civilizations, we knew eventually we'd meet neighbors who might not be friendly. So we spent the last 200 years getting ready for this conversation." Or struggled to process what he was seeing. The fundamental assumptions underlying Council military doctrine were crumbling before his eyes. "Your technology advancement rate is impossible. No species develops this quickly without external assistance." Santos laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both warm and terrifying. "You're thinking about this wrong, Admiral. You keep assuming we developed this technology in the time since first contact. We didn't. We've been preparing for this meeting since before we knew you existed." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that when humans first looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone, we decided we better be ready in case the answer was yes, and in case whoever we met wasn't friendly. Every advancement we made, every breakthrough in physics or engineering, we asked ourselves one question: how does this help us survive contact with a hostile alien civilization?" The display showed more details of human defensive preparations. Worlds that appeared to be simple colonies were revealed to be fortress planets with defensive capabilities that exceeded anything the Council had ever constructed. Mining operations in asteroid belts turned out to be military shipyards that had been producing vessels for decades. "Your government records show first contact occurred 50 years ago," or protested. "First official contact, yes. But we detected your radio signals 2 centuries ago, Admiral. We've been listening to your communications, studying your technology, and preparing for this conversation for 8 generations." The implications hit the alien commander like a physical blow. While the Council had been humans as a minor rim species, humanity had been conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. They hadn't just achieved rapid technological advancement. They had been working toward this specific goal since before any Council species knew they existed. "This is why your expansion seemed so aggressive," Or said, understanding beginning to dawn. "You weren't exploring randomly, you were building a defensive network." Santos nodded. "Every colony world is a fortress. Every mining operation is a weapons manufacturing facility. Every trade route is a supply line in a defensive network that took us 2 centuries to build. We didn't stumble into space and start grabbing territory, Admiral. We planned this entire civilization around surviving contact with hostile aliens." The bridge crew around or began to show signs of fear, their species' equivalent of panic setting in as they realized the scope of human preparation. The translation computers identified increasing stress hormones in the air recycling systems of ships throughout the fleet. "But why," Or asked, "why assume we would be hostile?" "Because hope is not a strategy," Santos replied simply. "We hoped you would be friendly. We prepared for you to be exactly what you turned out to be, a militaristic alliance that responds to anything different with immediate violence." The tactical display now showed the full scope of the situation. The Council fleet, impressive as it was, found itself surrounded by a human defensive network that had been 2 centuries in the making. Every advantage they had counted on, superior numbers, established technology, military experience, had been anticipated and countered. "You still cannot match our combined fleet in direct combat," Orr said, though he no longer sounded confident. "Numbers and experience matter." "You're right about experience," Santos agreed. "You have 2 of experience conquering species that weren't ready for you, but we have 2 centuries of experience preparing specifically for you. Every simulation we've run, every scenario we've planned for, every weapon we've designed has been focused on one goal: surviving contact with a hostile galactic civilization." "And numbers?" Orr asked. Santos checked her display again. "Oh, I forgot to mention. The 1,800 ships you're detecting are just the ones in this sector. We have defensive fleets protecting every human world, plus mobile reserves, plus the ships we haven't uncloaked yet because we're still not sure if you have allies waiting in nearby systems." The final pieces of the puzzle clicked into place for Orr. The humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared for war against an unknown enemy with unknown capabilities and unknown allies. Their entire civilization had been designed from the ground up to be capable of defending itself against any conceivable threat. "How many ships do you have?" he asked quietly. "Enough," Santos replied. "Admiral, I want to be clear about something. We don't want this fight. We've spent 2 centuries hopping we wouldn't need these preparations, but if you force this conflict, you need to understand what you're choosing." "Enlighten me." "You're choosing to fight a species that has spent every day since discovering your existence preparing for this exact scenario. A species that has never known peace, never known safety, and has built an entire civilization around the assumption that someday we would have to fight for our survival against impossible odds." Santos paused, her expression growing serious. "Admiral, your people became strong by conquering the weak. We became strong by preparing to fight the strong. The difference might matter more than you think." Fleet Admiral Orr made the decision that would define the next phase of galactic history. Despite everything he had learned about human preparations, despite the impossible technological displays, despite every tactical analysis suggesting retreat, he gave the order that 2 of military tradition demanded. "All ships attack formation Delta 7. Target the colonial worlds first. If we eliminate their civilian populations, their military will surrender to preserve what remains." It was the same strategy that had worked against 43 different species over the centuries. Threaten the weak, and the strong would yield to protect them. They had never encountered a species where this approach failed. They were about to learn why humanity was different. The Council fleet surged forward with practiced precision, 237 warships arranging themselves into the formation that had broken the defenses of countless civilizations. Their weapons powered up, targeting systems locked onto the nearest human colony world, and Admiral Orr prepared to deliver the demonstration of overwhelming force that would end this conflict before it truly began. The human response was unlike anything in the recorded military history of 47 different civilizations. Instead of trying to intercept the attacking fleet, instead of positioning their ships to defend the colony worlds, the humans did something that made no tactical sense whatsoever. Every human vessel, from the smallest frigate to the massive dreadnoughts that had appeared from stealth, turned away from the Council fleet and accelerated toward the colony worlds themselves. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, confusion clear in his voice, "the human ships are not moving to intercept. They appear to be retreating to their own colonies." Or watched the tactical display with growing bewilderment. Either the humans were cowards who intended to hide behind their civilian populations, or they were employing a strategy so alien that he couldn't comprehend it. Given everything else he had learned about humanity, he suspected it was the latter. "Maintain course," he ordered. "Whatever they're planning, they can't protect 17 worlds simultaneously against our concentrated force." The lead elements of the Council fleet reached effective weapons range of the first human colony, a world called New Harmony that housed 3 million human civilians, or had chosen it specifically because intelligence reports suggested it contained a large population of families with children. The psychological impact of threatening the young was a proven tactic. "Fire," he commanded. The combined firepower of 50 Council ships lashed out across space, enough destructive energy to sterilize a continent. The targeting computers had locked onto major population centers, industrial facilities, and infrastructure nodes. It was a precisely calculated strike designed to demonstrate the futility of resistance without actually exterminating the human species. The weapon's fire struck something 600 kilometers above the colony world's surface and simply disappeared. "Report," or barked, his four arms gesticulating in agitation. "Sir, our weapons impacted some kind of energy barrier, but it's not deflecting our fire or absorbing it. The energy signatures suggest our weapons are being translated somehow, converted to something else entirely." Before or could demand clarification, the human ships that had retreated to their colony worlds began doing something that redefined the Council's understanding of the word impossible. Instead of launching defensive fire, instead of raising shields, instead of any conventional military response, they began to sing. The translation computers struggled to process what they were receiving. It wasn't a battle cry or a war chant. It was actual music, broadcast across all frequencies, a complex harmony involving thousands of voices in dozens of languages. The songs spoke of home, of family, of worlds where children could play safely under alien suns. And as the humans sang, their ships began to transform. "Sir, the human vessels are changing configuration. They appear to be linking together somehow." On the tactical display, human ships throughout the colony system were physically connecting to each other, forming vast networks that stretched between worlds. As they linked up, their individual energy signatures combined and creating power outputs that exceeded anything the Council's physicists had theorized was possible. "They're not just linking their ships," the science officer whispered, his voice filled with awe and terror. "They're linking their entire civilization. Every colony, every station, every vessel is becoming part of a single integrated system." The singing grew louder, more complex, as millions of human voices joined the chorus. Children in schools, workers in factories, scientists in laboratories, soldiers in barracks, all adding their voices to a song that spoke of hope in the face of extinction. And then the humans revealed the true scope of their preparations. The energy barriers that had absorbed the Council's weapons fire began to pulse in rhythm with the singing. The absorbed energy wasn't being wasted or reflected. It was being collected, concentrated, and transformed into something unprecedented. The barriers weren't just defensive systems. They were conversion matrices that turned hostile energy into power for the human network. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, his voice barely controlled, "they're using our weapons fire to power their defenses. Every shot we fire makes them stronger." Or stared at the display in disbelief. The humans had somehow built a defensive system that not only protected against attack, but actually drew strength from the attempt to destroy them. It was as if they had anticipated this exact scenario and prepared for it with typical human thoroughness. "Cease fire," he ordered, though he knew it was already too late. The damage was done, but not to the humans. Colonel Santos appeared on the communication channel again, her image now broadcasting from the center of the linked human network. Behind her, the tactical display showed representatives from every human world, their faces calm and determined despite the fact that they were under direct attack by the largest military force in galactic history. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I want you to understand what you just witnessed. You attacked our children, our families, our homes. You tried to destroy everything we've built because you were afraid of what we might become." The tactical display shifted to show the human colony worlds. Instead of devastation, instead of the burning cities and terrified populations or had expected to see, the worlds were perfectly intact. The massive attack had been completely neutralized, its energy converted into power for the human defensive network. "But we're not angry," Santos continued, and somehow that was more terrifying than any threat could have been. "We're disappointed. We spent 2 centuries hoping that when we met our galactic neighbors, they would be something better than what we feared. We hoped you would be allies, teachers, friends. You proved yourselves to be exactly what we prepared for." The linked human network began to reconfigure itself again, but this time the transformation was clearly offensive in nature. Ships that had been hidden throughout human space began to emerge from stealth, their designs unlike anything the Council had ever seen. They moved with impossible precision, their formation patterns following principles of three-dimensional warfare that seem to ignore established physics. "You wanted to test our strength," Santos said. "You wanted to know if we were a threat to your established order. Allow us to provide you with a comprehensive answer." What happened next would be studied in military academies throughout the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. The human fleet, now openly revealing the true scope of their capabilities, engaged the Council force in a battle that redefined the meaning of technological superiority. Human weapons fired projectiles that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, striking targets from directions that hadn't existed moments before. Their ships moved through space in ways that violated conservation of momentum, appearing in multiple locations at once, phasing through solid matter when it suited their tactical needs. But more than their impossible technology, it was their coordination that truly set them apart. 2 centuries of preparation had produced a military force that fought as a single organism. Every human ship, every weapon system, every defensive platform operated with perfect synchronization, as if 1,800 individual vessels were merely components of a single vast machine. The Council fleet, despite its size and experience, found itself completely outmatched. Their weapons couldn't hit targets that existed in multiple dimensions. Their tactics were useless against an enemy that could coordinate the movements of thousands of units with microsecond precision. Their formations dissolved under assault patterns that seemed to have been designed by geniuses. In 17 minutes, it was over. The mighty Council fleet, the largest military force assembled in 5 centuries, hung dead in space. Not destroyed, not annihilated, but simply stopped. Their weapons were offline, their engines disabled, their life support systems functioning, but their ships unable to move or fight. "We told you we didn't want this fight," Santos said, her voice carrying across the quantum communication channels to every ship in the disabled fleet. "We told you we prepared for it anyway." Admiral Orr found himself looking at a human face on his main display, while his ship's systems refused to respond to any command. Around him, his bridge crew struggled with controls that had been rendered completely inoperative by technology they couldn't begin to understand. "What did you do to us?" he asked. "We showed you what 2 centuries of preparation looks like," Santos replied. "Every system on your ships is now under our control. Your weapons are offline, your engines are disabled, your navigation systems are locked out. But your life support is functioning perfectly, your communication systems work fine, and your medical bays are fully operational. Why haven't you destroyed us?" Santos smiled sadly. "Because that's what you would have done to us. We're not you, Admiral. We never wanted to be conquerors. We just wanted to be left alone to build something beautiful among the stars." The implications of human mercy, delivered with such overwhelming technological superiority, hit or harder than any weapon could have. The humans could have annihilated the Council fleet effortlessly. Instead, they had chosen to demonstrate their strength while preserving life. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you go home," Santos said simply. "You tell the Council what you learned here. You explain that humans aren't interested in threatening their established order, but that we're perfectly capable of defending ourselves against anyone who tries to threaten ours. And if the Council decides to send a larger fleet..." "Admiral, what you faced here was the defensive network for one colonial sector. We have 16 others just like it, plus our home fleet around Earth, plus our deep space mobile forces." Santos paused to let that information sink in. "The next time someone decides to test human strength, we might not be in such a merciful mood." As the disabled Council ships began the long journey home, powered by human technology and guided by human navigation systems, Admiral Orr realized that everything the galaxy thought it knew about power, about strength, about military superiority, had just been proven wrong. The humans hadn't just defended themselves. They had redefined what defense meant. They had shown that true strength wasn't about the ability to destroy, but about the ability to protect what you cared about while choosing not to destroy those who threatened you. It was a lesson the galaxy would spend the next few centuries learning to understand. Journey back to the Galactic Council took 3 months, during which time the disabled fleet learned what it meant to be completely dependent on human technology for survival. The humans had indeed rendered every Council ship inoperative, but they had also provided replacement systems that kept the crews alive, comfortable, and surprisingly well-informed about what was happening in the galaxy. Admiral Orr spent those months reviewing battle recordings, trying to understand not just how the humans had achieved such overwhelming victory, but why they had chosen to spare their attackers. The answer, when it finally came to him, was perhaps more disturbing than the defeat itself. The humans had never intended to win the battle. They had intended to win the peace. During the long voyage home, human communication arrays kept the Council fleet updated on developments throughout their territory. Trade agreements were being negotiated with 12 different species. Medical supplies were being shipped to worlds suffering from plague outbreaks. Scientific research was being shared freely with any civilization that requested it. The humans were actively working to integrate themselves into galactic society, not as conquerors, but as contributors. Every action they took seemed designed to prove that their overwhelming military capabilities were intended purely for defense. When the fleet finally reached Council space, they found a galaxy that had already begun to change. News of the human victory had spread faster than the returning ships, and the implications were being debated in every major civilization. Some species called for immediate mobilization, demanding that the Council assemble an even larger force to crush the human threat before it could grow stronger. Others, perhaps more wisely, suggested that humanity's restraint in victory represented an opportunity rather than a threat. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the same crystalline chamber where the decision to attack humanity had been made months earlier. But the atmosphere was dramatically different. Where before there had been confidence and casual dismissal of a minor rim species, now there was uncertainty, fear, and something approaching respect. Admiral Orr stood before the assembled delegates, his 4 arms hanging slack at his sides in a gesture his species reserved for reporting complete defeat. His voice carried clearly through the translation matrix as he delivered his report. Honored representatives, the fleet you entrusted to my command has been completely defeated. Not destroyed, not scattered, but rendered utterly helpless by technology we cannot understand and tactics we cannot counter. The chamber remained silent as he continued. The human defensive capabilities exceed our most pessimistic projections by orders of magnitude. They possess weapons that operate outside known physics, ships that can exist in multiple locations simultaneously, and coordination systems that allow thousands of vessels to operate as a single unit. Counselor Ra pulsed a deep blue, her species' color for profound confusion. Are you reporting that they have achieved technological transcendence? Have they evolved beyond physical limitations? No, Counselor. They are still very much a physical species operating within natural law, but they have mastered applications of those laws that our best scientists claim should be impossible. Or activated the holographic display system, showing detailed recordings of the human defensive network in action. More importantly, they have achieved something even more remarkable than technological superiority. They have achieved perfect integration between their civilian and military infrastructure. When we attacked their colony worlds, every human contributed to their defense, not through fear or coercion, but through genuine unity of purpose. High Arbitrator resonated a low harmonic that conveyed ancient wisdom tinged with concern. Explain what you mean by unity of purpose, Admiral. The humans we encountered weren't just defending territory or resources, honored Arbitrator. They were defending a way of life that every member of their species apparently believes in absolutely. When they sang during the battle, it wasn't a war chant. It was an expression of what they call hope. The concept required extensive translation, as most galactic species had no equivalent for the human notion of maintaining optimism in the face of impossible odds, while simultaneously preparing for the worst possible outcomes. They fight not to conquer or dominate, but to preserve their ability to build what they call something beautiful among the stars. Every human world we observed was dedicated to this goal. They terraform planets not just to extract resources, but to create environments where their young can play safely. They build cities not just for efficiency, but for what they call beauty. Counselor Hen spoke from her aquatic chamber, her harmonic voice carrying puzzlement. You described them as if they were artists rather than warriors, yet they achieved total victory against our combined fleet. That is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of what we encountered, Orr replied. They are artists who have become warriors out of necessity, not warriors who have learned to create. Their entire military doctrine is defensive, designed to protect their ability to build rather than to destroy others' creations. The display showed footage from human colony worlds during the battle. While their military engaged the Council fleet, human civilians had continued their daily activities. Children attended schools, scientists worked in laboratories, artists created sculptures in public parks. The only visible change was that everyone had participated in the singing, adding their voices to the chorus that had somehow powered their defensive network. They possess the capability to destroy any civilization in known space, or continued, but they appear to have no interest in doing so. During our 3-month journey home, they provided regular updates on their activities: trade agreements, medical aid, scientific collaboration, cultural exchanges. They are actively working to integrate with galactic society despite having just proven they don't need our approval or cooperation. Ambassador rose from his gravitational suspension field, his expression showing the confusion that had plagued him since reviewing his brother's reports. Admiral, are you suggesting that humanity represents no threat to the established order? I'm suggesting, honored brother, that humanity represents a fundamental challenge to everything we thought we knew about the relationship between strength and civilization. They have achieved overwhelming military superiority, but they use it to protect rather than to expand. They have developed technology that could conquer the galaxy, but they apply it to building gardens. The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates struggled to process concepts that didn't fit any established pattern of galactic civilization. Some species argued that human restraint was merely a strategic deception, that no species could achieve such power without eventually using it for conquest. Others pointed out that humanity's actions during the 3 months since their victory had been entirely consistent with their claimed goals. They had offered medical aid to former enemies, shared technological innovations that could benefit everyone, and continued to welcome diplomatic contact from any species interested in peaceful relations. Counselor of the Silicon Hegemony posed the question that everyone was thinking, but no one wanted to ask. What do we do with a species that is stronger than all of us combined, but doesn't want to rule us? The silence that followed was profound. In 2 of galactic civilization, the Council had never encountered such a scenario. Every previous first contact had followed predictable patterns: primitive species that could be guided or ignored, aggressive species that could be contained or defeated, or advanced species that sought to expand their influence through diplomacy or conquest. Humanity fit none of these categories. They were simultaneously primitive enough to value concepts like beauty and hope, and advanced enough to render the galaxy's greatest military force helpless in 17 minutes. They were aggressive enough to build the most powerful defensive network ever conceived, and peaceful enough to spend their energy terraforming dead worlds into garden paradises. High Arbitrator finally broke the silence with a harmonic that conveyed ancient authority, tinged with something none of them had heard from her before: uncertainty. Perhaps the question is not what we do with humanity, but what we learn from them. In our observation and analysis of this species, we have discovered capabilities that challenge our understanding of what is possible. But we have also discovered motivations that challenge our understanding of what is desirable. The display shifted to show comparative analyses of galactic civilizations. The Empire, built on conquest and maintained through strength. The Ethereal Collective, focused on transcendence and the pursuit of perfect knowledge. The Aquatic Federation, dedicated to harmony and environmental balance. Dozens of other species, each with their own goals and methods of achieving them. Every civilization in this chamber has achieved greatness through focus on specific aspects of existence. We have mastered war, science, philosophy, arts, commerce, exploration. But perhaps we have lost sight of something the humans have somehow retained. "What is that, honored arbitrator?" asked Counselor Ra. "The ability to pursue multiple greatnesses simultaneously without losing sight of the connections between them. The humans build beautiful cities and perfect defensive networks. They create art and develop impossible weapons. They sing songs about hope while preparing for the worst-case scenario." The ancient being paused, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that spoke of deep contemplation. "They have achieved something we thought was impossible. A civilization that is both completely prepared for war and entirely dedicated to peace." Admiral Orr nodded slowly. They told me that their strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the ability to protect what they care about. After 3 months of being dependent on their technology for survival, I believe they were telling the truth. "What are you recommending, Admiral?" asked Ambassador. "I recommend that we stop thinking of humanity as a threat to be contained or an enemy to be defeated. They have proven that they are stronger than all of us combined. More importantly, they have proven that they choose to use that strength to build rather than to destroy." Or manipulated the display to show the current status of human space. 17 worlds, each one a testament to the human ability to transform dead rock into living beauty. Space stations that served as centers of learning and cultural exchange rather than military fortresses. Trade routes that brought prosperity to previously isolated systems. I recommend that we learn from them, honored representatives. For two, we have believed that strength and civilization were opposing forces, that military power inevitably led to aggressive expansion. The humans have proven that assumption wrong. They have shown us that it is possible to be strong enough to protect everything you care about, while being wise enough to choose protection over conquest. Perhaps it is time the galaxy learned what that kind of strength really means. The vote, when it finally came, was unanimous in a way that had never occurred in Council history. Not because every species agreed on what to do about humanity, but because every species agreed that humanity had fundamentally changed what was possible in galactic civilization. The resolution officially welcomed humanity to the Galactic Council, not as a minor rim species to be monitored or contained, but as an equal member whose voice would carry the same weight as any other civilization. More importantly, it established the first joint research initiative in Council history, aimed at understanding how a species could achieve perfect integration between defensive capability and peaceful intent. As the delegates dispersed to their home worlds, each carrying news that would reshape their civilization's understanding of what strength really meant, none of them noticed that humanity had already begun the next phase of their plan. Across the galaxy, human ships were approaching systems that had sent requests for aid during the 3 months since the battle. Medical supplies for plague-stricken worlds, terraforming technology for civilizations trapped on dying planets, communication systems that would allow isolated species to join the galactic community. The humans were about to demonstrate that their greatest weapon wasn't their impossible technology or their perfect coordination. Their greatest weapon was their genuine desire to help anyone who needed it, regardless of whether they had been allies or enemies just months before. It was a lesson the galaxy was still learning to understand. 5 years after the battle that redefined galactic civilization, the transformation of known space continued in ways that none of the Council species had anticipated. The humans had not only kept their promise to focus on building rather than conquering, they had exceeded every optimistic projection about what peaceful cooperation could accomplish. The Galactic Communication Network now operated on human quantum relay technology, allowing instantaneous contact between civilizations that had previously been isolated by distance and incompatible systems. Medical advances shared freely by human research stations had eliminated 17 different pandemic diseases and extended the average of most Council species by significant margins. Most remarkably, the economic output of the galaxy had increased by 40%, as human terraforming techniques allowed previously uninhabitable worlds to become productive colonies. Instead of competing for limited resources, the galaxy had suddenly found itself with an abundance of habitable worlds and the technology to develop them efficiently. But the most profound changes were not technological or economic, they were philosophical. Admiral Orr, now serving as the Empire's permanent ambassador to the Human Integration Council, stood in his office aboard the orbital station that had become the center of galactic cooperation efforts. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from 49 different species docked at the facility, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible 5 years ago. An engineering team was collaborating with human scientists to develop defensive systems for refugee colonies. An ethereal collective research group was studying human coordination techniques to improve their own transcendence meditation practices. Aquatic Federation were learning to create water worlds using human atmospheric processors. The transformation extended beyond simple technology transfer. The human concept of building something beautiful among the stars had become a shared goal that transcended species barriers. Each civilization was discovering what beauty meant in their own context, while working toward the common objective of creating a galaxy where all species could flourish. Ambassador Or, his aide announced, the Human Integration Council is ready for your presentation. The chamber where the council met was itself a testament to the changes humanity had brought to galactic civilization. Instead of the cold, formal architecture of the traditional council chambers, this space had been designed using principles from 17 different aesthetic traditions, creating an environment that was simultaneously functional and inspiring. Representatives from every major galactic civilization were present, but the atmosphere was completely different from the emergency session 5 years ago. Where there had been fear and hostility, there was now curiosity and genuine enthusiasm for collaborative problem-solving. Colonel Maria Santos, now bearing the title of Human Integration Coordinator, called the session to order. She had aged visibly in the 5 years since first contact, but her eyes still carried the same calm confidence that had faced down the Council's military might. Fellow representatives, she began, Ambassador Or has requested this session to present findings from the Empire's comprehensive study of human integration effects. Ambassador, the floor is yours. Or rose, his 4 arms moving in gestures that his species now used to express gratitude rather than dominance. The psychological transformation of society had been one of the most dramatic changes in the galaxy, as a warrior culture discovered that there were challenges more worthy of their strength than conquest. Honored colleagues, he began, 5 years ago my people made the worst decision in our civilization's history. We chose to attack humanity based on fear and incomplete understanding. Today, I stand before you to report that this mistake led to the best outcome in galactic history. The display activated to show statistical analyses that had taken teams of researchers years to compile. Economic growth, technological advancement, reduction in conflicts between species, improvements in quality of life across dozens of different civilizations. When humanity demonstrated their defensive capabilities, we believed we were witnessing a military defeat. What we were actually witnessing was the beginning of the most rapid advancement in galactic civilization ever recorded. The data was overwhelming. Species that had been stagnant for centuries were experiencing Renaissance periods of creativity and growth. Ancient conflicts that had persisted were being resolved through collaborative problem-solving techniques developed by human diplomats. Even the most reclusive civilizations were voluntarily joining joint research initiatives. But statistics only tell part of the story, Or continued. The real transformation has been in how we understand the relationship between strength and civilization. Humanity has taught us that true strength comes not from the ability to impose your will on others, but from the ability to help others achieve their own goals. He gestured to the viewing ports, where representatives could see the bustling activity of the orbital station. Every species represented here has become stronger, not through conquest or competition, but through cooperation and mutual support. The humans didn't just defeat our fleet, they defeated our assumption that strength must lead to domination. Counselor Ra pulsed bright gold, her species' color for profound understanding. Ambassador, are you reporting that human integration has eliminated conflict between galactic civilizations? Not eliminated, Counselor, but transformed. When conflicts arise now, they are resolved through collaborative problem-solving rather than military force. The knowledge that humanity could intervene decisively in any conflict has made negotiation the preferred option for all parties. You describe humanity as galactic peacekeepers, observed Counselor Hen. Do they use their superior capabilities to enforce compliance? Or's expression would have been recognizable as amusement to any human observer. They don't need to enforce anything, Counselor. When a species that could conquer the galaxy chooses instead to help you build schools and hospitals, it becomes very difficult to justify aggressive behavior toward your neighbors. The presentation continued with examples from across human space. The former Syndicate, once a piratical organization that preyed on weaker species, had transformed into a logistics network that specialized in delivering aid to disaster zones. The Silicon hegemony had abandoned their isolationist policies to become leaders in developing sustainable technology for organic species. Perhaps most remarkably, Or said, Humanity has achieved something that was considered theoretically impossible. A civilization that maintains overwhelming military superiority while genuinely preferring peaceful solutions to all conflicts. High Arbitrator resonated a complex harmonic that conveyed ancient wisdom touched with wonder. In two of galactic history, we have never encountered a species that became more peaceful as they became more powerful. The normal pattern is that strength leads to aggression, that capability creates the desire to use that capability. The humans appear to operate on a completely different principle, or agreed. They developed overwhelming capability specifically to avoid having to use it. Their entire military doctrine is based on being so obviously superior that no rational opponent would choose conflict. And for irrational opponents, asked Ambassador, they demonstrate the futility of aggression through overwhelming defensive capability, then offer assistance in addressing whatever underlying problems led to the aggression in the first place. It's a remarkably effective approach. The discussion turned to the long-term implications of human integration. Some representatives worried about dependency on human technology and assistance. Others questioned whether humanity's peaceful approach would remain viable if they encountered a truly hostile civilization from outside the known galaxy. Santos addressed these concerns with the same calm confidence she had shown 5 years ago. Fellow representatives, I want to address the question of dependency directly. Every technology we have shared, every assistance we have provided, has been designed to enable your civilizations to become more self-sufficient, not more dependent. Our goal has never been to create a galaxy that relies on human support. Our goal has been to create a galaxy that doesn't need military force to resolve conflicts, because everyone has what they need to flourish. She activated a new display showing projections for the next century of galactic development. Based on current trends, within 50 years every major civilization will have achieved sustainable abundance on their home worlds and colonies. Within a century, we project that military conflict between species will become obsolete not because it's prohibited, but because it's unnecessary. And if we encounter hostile civilizations from outside our galaxy, asked Counselor. Then we face them together, Santos replied simply. 49 species with combined resources and coordinated defensive capabilities. Anyone who wants to threaten this galaxy will have to face not just human technology, but the unified response of every civilization that has discovered what cooperation can accomplish. The implications were staggering. A unified galactic defense based not on dominance hierarchies or military alliances, but on genuine cooperation between species that had chosen to work together because they had experienced the benefits of peaceful collaboration. There is one final point I want to address, Santos continued. The question of what happens as other species develop technology that approaches or exceeds current human capabilities. This had been a source of considerable speculation and some concern among council species. If humanity's peaceful approach was based on overwhelming superiority, what would happen when that superiority was no longer unique? We look forward to it, Santos said with a smile that carried genuine enthusiasm. Our goal has never been to remain the strongest species in the galaxy. Our goal has been to help create a galaxy where strength is measured by the ability to build and protect, rather than the ability to destroy. When other species develop technology that matches or exceeds ours, when they achieve their own versions of perfect defensive capability, when they master their own techniques for turning hostile energy into constructive power, that won't threaten us. It will fulfill our deepest hopes. The silence that followed was profound, but it was the silence of wonder rather than fear. Representatives began to understand that humanity had been working toward making themselves unnecessary as galactic guardians by helping everyone else become strong enough to protect themselves and wise enough to choose cooperation over conflict. You're teaching us to become like you, whispered High Arbitrator. We're learning to become like us together, Santos corrected gently. Humanity didn't achieve our current capabilities in isolation. We built them through 2 centuries of collaboration, preparation, and shared dedication to a common goal. Now we're sharing that approach with the rest of the galaxy. What we're building here isn't a human empire or a human-dominated alliance. We're building something that has never existed before. A truly cooperative galactic civilization where every species contributes their unique strengths toward common goals that benefit everyone. As the session concluded and representatives returned to their ships and home worlds, each carried with them a message that would reshape their civilization's understanding of what was possible. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through superior force. They had not dominated through technological advantage. They had not imposed their will through overwhelming capability. Instead, they had demonstrated that true strength came from the ability to help others become strong. That real security came from ensuring everyone had what they needed to flourish. And that lasting peace was possible when every species chose cooperation, because they had experienced the benefits of working together. The galaxy humanity had promised to help build was becoming reality. A place where children of every species could play safely under alien suns, where civilizations competed to create beauty rather than to accumulate power, where the strongest chose to protect the weak rather than exploit them. They had believed they were strong. They had measured strength by the ability to conquer and dominate. Humans had proven them wrong by demonstrating that true strength came from the wisdom to choose building over destroying, protection over conquest, hope over fear. The transformation was complete, but the building had only just begun. 49 species, working together toward a common goal that transcended any individual civilization's ambitions, were about to discover what was truly possible when strength and wisdom, power and compassion, capability and restraint were combined in service of something beautiful among the stars. In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not the defeat of the Council fleet. It was the proof that a better way was possible, and the demonstration that strength without wisdom was not strength at all, but merely the illusion of power wielded by those who had never learned what they were truly capable of achieving. The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystalline floor, its vaulted ceiling lost in artificial starlight. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated alcoves, each environment carefully controlled to accommodate different atmospheric needs. The air hummed with translation matrices and the soft chittering of a dozen different forms of communication. Ambassador of the Empire rose from his gravitational suspension field, his 4 arms spreading wide in a gesture of dominance. His species had ruled the eastern spiral arm for over 2, their warrior culture built on conquest and strength. Standing 3 meters tall with chitinous armor naturally grown from their exoskeleton, they were the undisputed military power of known space. Honored representatives, his voice boomed through the translation system, we gather today to address a new threat to galactic stability. Intelligence reports indicate a species from the rim worlds has begun expanding beyond their home system. They call themselves humans. An early reconnaissance suggests they possess technology and aggressive tendencies that warrant immediate attention. A ripple of interest passed through the chamber. New species were discovered regularly, but few warranted a full council session. Most were either too primitive to matter or too advanced to be considered threats to the established order. Counselor Ra of the Ethereal Collective floated closer to the speaking circle, her translucent form shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Her species communicated through color and electrical impulses, having evolved beyond physical speech ago. What makes these humans different from the countless other rim species we've? Our databases show the outer arms typically produce either prey species or, at best, minor trade partners. Activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. 3-dimensional star charts showed a small yellow star system with 9 planets, the third highlighted in blue and green. The humans emerged from this single world, which they call Earth. Initial scans suggested a typical carbon-based biosphere with moderate gravity and a standard atmospheric composition. Nothing remarkable. The display zoomed in to show the planet in detail, then shifted to show technological progression charts. However, in less than 200 years, they progressed from primitive combustion engines to faster-than-light travel. Their development curve is unprecedented in galactic history. A collective murmur arose from the assembled delegates. Even the most aggressive species typically took a millennium or more to develop FTL capability after achieving space flight. Perhaps they received outside assistance, suggested of the silicon hegemony, his crystalline form refracting light across the chamber walls. There are precedents for advanced species sharing technology with promising primitives. That was our initial assumption, replied, manipulating the hologram to show detailed scans of human spacecraft. But analysis of their technology reveals a completely unique development path. Their ships use fusion drives paired with gravitational field manipulation in ways our physicists claim should be impossible. Their computer systems operate on quantum principles that our best scientists are still struggling to understand. The display shifted again, showing recorded footage of human colonies. Sprawling cities rose from barren worlds, massive terraforming operations that transformed dead rocks into garden planets in decades rather than centuries. Humans in environmental suits worked alongside massive construction mechs, their movements precise and purposeful. More concerning, continued, is their expansion rate. In 50 years since achieving FTL, they have established permanent settlements on 17 worlds and mining operations in 32 systems. They show no signs of slowing down. Counselor Hen of the Aquatic Federation spoke from her water-filled chamber, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of her species' deep ocean evolution. Rapid expansion is not necessarily threatening. Many species go through aggressive colonization phases before settling into stable territories. What evidence suggests hostility? The hologram changed to show intercepted human communications, translated text scrolling alongside audio recordings. Their languages contain over 2,000 words for warfare, conflict, and competition. Their entertainment frequently involves simulated combat scenarios. Most telling, they refer to their expansion as manifest destiny, a concept that translates roughly to inevitable conquest of all available territory. High Arbitrator of the Ancient Conclave finally spoke, her species so old that they remembered the formation of the first galactic governments. Her crystalline body, worn smooth by of existence, resonated with harmonic frequencies that bypassed translation altogether. We have seen aggressive species before. They themselves once conquered 3 sectors before joining the Council. What makes you believe these humans pose a unique threat? His 4 eyes narrowed, a sign of deep concern among his people. Because they are unlike any species we have encountered, observe their response to first contact. The display showed a human starship, sleek and angular, approached by a diplomatic vessel. The massive dreadnought, bristling with weapons and armor, dwarfed the human craft by a factor of 10. Standard protocol called for the smaller vessel to surrender weapons and prepare for boarding. Instead, the human ship accelerated directly toward the vessel, its hull opening to reveal weapon ports that had been completely invisible to their sensors. The engagement lasted 17 seconds. When it ended, the ship was drifting dead in space, its crew unconscious from some kind of neural disruptor field. They destroyed a heavy cruiser with a ship 1/10 its size, said quietly. They used weapons our sensors couldn't detect and tactics our strategists couldn't predict. Then, instead of destroying the ship entirely, they boarded it and provided medical aid to our crew. The chamber fell silent. Even the most advanced species in the Council would have struggled against a heavy cruiser, and none would have shown mercy afterward. This is their pattern, continued. They fight with impossible effectiveness, then show unexpected compassion. They terraformed a dead world to relocate refugees from a plague outbreak, spending enormous resources to save a species they had never met. Yet when the Syndicate attempted to claim one of their mining worlds, the humans eliminated an entire fleet group without losing a single ship. Counselor Ra pulsed bright red, her species' sign of agitation. You're suggesting they're more dangerous because they're unpredictably merciful. That hardly seems logical. I'm suggesting they're dangerous because we can't understand them, replied. Every other species follows predictable patterns, territorial instincts, resource competition, hierarchical dominance structures. The humans appear to operate on principles we haven't encountered before. The display shifted one final time, showing a compilation of human activities across their territory. Children playing in elaborate recreational facilities on a mining world. Scientists collaborating with 3 different alien species on a research station. Military units practicing combat maneuvers that involved protecting civilian populations rather than eliminating enemies. They build cities where other species would build fortresses. They share technology with potential allies while simultaneously developing weapons that our intelligence agencies can't comprehend. They sing songs about peace while training armies that have never known defeat. High Arbitrator resonated a low, thoughtful tone. What do you propose, Ambassador? I propose we issue a formal directive limiting human expansion to their current territory. If they refuse, we enforce the limitation through military action before they become too powerful to contain. The chamber erupted in discussion, dozens of species debating the merits of preemptive action against a species they barely understood. Some argued for immediate military intervention, others for continued observation. A few suggested attempting peaceful contact through proper diplomatic channels. Counselor Hen's voice cut through the chaos. Has anyone considered simply asking the humans what they want? Perhaps their goals are not as threatening as they appear. His expression would have been recognizable as a sneer to any human observer. They want what every species wants, Counselor. More territory, more resources, more power. The only question is whether we stop them now, while we still can, or wait until they're strong enough to stop us. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone expected. 24 species voted for immediate action, 20 voted for continued observation, and 3 abstained. The resolution passed by the narrowest margin in Council history. As the delegates dispersed to their ships and home worlds, none of them noticed the small probe that had been monitoring their session from the chamber's outer hull. Its stealth systems, based on principles the Council's scientists wouldn't discover for another century, made it invisible to their most advanced sensors. The probe recorded everything, compressed the data into a quantum transmission, and sent it across the galaxy in real time to a blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. There, in a facility hidden beneath the mountains of Colorado, human analysts reviewed the footage with expressions that would have terrified the Council members who thought they were the ones making threats. Admiral Sarah closed the file and looked across the briefing room at her staff. Looks like we're about to find out just how strong they really think they are. Outside the mountain facility, across Earth's continents, a species that had never known a day of true peace began preparing for a war that would reshape the galaxy. They had been waiting for this moment since their first tentative steps into space, knowing that eventually they would have to prove themselves to a universe that judged worth by the ability to survive. The Galactic Council had made their decision based on fear and incomplete information. They were about to discover that humans had made their preparations based on hope and complete dedication to a principle they called freedom. The difference would matter more than anyone could imagine.